Look around your modern apartment. Thermostat on the wall, vents blowing hot air, smart controls, programmable schedules. Yet the moment your HVAC system shuts off, you feel the cold creeping back. Medieval castles had none of this. No electricity, no thermostats, no forced air. Yet nights in stone fortresses felt warmer, more comfortable, and healthier than you do in your insulated box. The answer lies in a physics principle modern engineers forgot. Our ancestors didn't heat the air, they heated the building. And that 10 difference changes everything. In this video, we expose why your HVAC system is the most wasteful way to stay warm, and how medieval masons understood thermal mass better than modern HVAC engineers. If you're ready to understand why you're always cold, let's begin. To understand why your heating bills are astronomical and you're still shivering, we must first examine the fundamental mistake of modern climate control: forced air convection. This story doesn't start in a cozy fireside, as you might think. This story begins in the post-World War II housing boom, when speed, standardization, and cheapness became the gods of construction. Modern HVAC systems operate on a devastatingly simple but profoundly flawed principle: heat the air, blow it around, repeat. In your basement or utility closet, a furnace burns gas or electricity to superheat air. That hot air gets pushed through metal ducts by a powerful fan, then blown into your living spaces through vents. The air warms up quickly. Problem solved, right? Wrong, because air is one of the worst possible materials to use as a heat storage medium. Think about the physics for a moment. Air has an extremely low thermal mass. It's mostly empty space between molecules. Heating air is like trying to warm yourself by hugging a cloud. The moment you stop blowing hot air into the room, that warmth vanishes. It rises to the ceiling, stratifies into layers, and if there's any crack or draft, and there always is, it leaks right out of your house. Modern homes are not airtight fortresses. They breathe, they leak, they hemorrhage heat. And what does your thermostat do? It detects the temperature drop and fires up the furnace again. This creates a vicious cycle. Heat, lose heat, detect loss, heat, again, lose again. All day, all night, burning fuel in short bursts, never achieving true thermal stability. But the problems don't stop at inefficiency. Forced air systems create what engineers politely call thermal stratification, but what your body experiences as the hot head, cold feet syndrome. Hot air is less dense than cold air, so it rises. In a typical room heated by forced air, the temperature at ceiling level can be 5, even 10 degrees warmer than the temperature at floor level where you actually live and walk. Your thermostat, mounted on the wall at eye level, reads a comfortable temperature and shuts off. Meanwhile, your feet are freezing and your head is overheating. This vertical temperature gradient is not just uncomfortable, it's physiologically stressful. Your body is simultaneously trying to cool down your upper half and warm up your lower half. And then there's the air quality catastrophe. Every time that blower fan kicks on, it doesn't just move air, it moves everything in the air. Dust mites, mold spores, pet dander, pollen, chemical off-gassing from carpets and furniture, all of it gets picked up from settled surfaces and blasted into circulation. Modern forced air systems are essentially allergen distribution networks. If you suffer from allergies, asthma, or chronic sinusitis, your HVAC system is your enemy, not your friend. It's constantly stirring up the very particles your immune system is trying to avoid. Modern HVAC engineers will tell you this is the price of convenience. They'll say yes, but you get instant heat. You press a button, and 30 seconds later, warm air is flowing. And that's true. But instant is not the same as lasting. Instant is not the same as efficient. And instant is certainly not the same as comfortable. Because comfort is not just about hitting a number on a thermostat. True thermal comfort is about something called mean radiant temperature, the average temperature of all the surfaces around you. And this is where modern heating fails spectacularly and where our medieval ancestors excelled. Now let's journey back to Northern Europe, to the frozen winters of medieval Germany, Russia, and Scandinavia. Imagine you're a peasant in a small cottage, or a monk in a monastery, facing 6 months of brutal cold. You have no electricity, No gas lines, no thermostats. Your only fuel is wood, and wood is precious. You can't waste it. What do you do? The medieval answer was the masonry heater, known in Russia as the pek, and in Germany as the kachelofen. These were not simple fireplaces or wood stoves. They were massive structures, sometimes weighing several tons, built from stone, brick, or tile. The design varied by region, but the core principle was always the same. Create a labyrinth inside the mass where hot exhaust gases would snake through before finally exiting the chimney. This forced the heat to transfer into the masonry itself, turning the entire structure into a gigantic thermal battery. Here's how it worked in practice. Once or twice a day, typically in the morning and perhaps again in the evening, you would build a very hot, fast fire inside the masonry heater. Not a slow, smoldering fire like in a modern wood stove, but an intense blaze that burned clean and complete. The fire might last only 1 or 2 hours, but during that time the flames and hot gases would roar through the internal channels, heating the stone or brick to extremely high temperatures. Then, once the fire was out and the smoke had cleared, you would seal the damper shut, trapping the heat inside the mass. And here's where the magic happens. Stone and brick have very high thermal mass. Unlike air, they can absorb enormous amounts of heat energy and hold onto it for a very long time. The thick walls of the masonry heater would slowly release that stored heat through radiation, not convection, radiation, for the next 12 to 24 hours. That single morning fire could keep you warm all day and well into the night. No constant feeding of fuel, no choking smoke in the room, no cycling on and off like a modern furnace, just steady, silent, gentle warmth radiating from the mass. This is fundamentally different from how your forced air system works. Your HVAC heats air molecules and tries to keep them trapped in your house. A masonry heater heats solid mass, and then that mass heats you directly through infrared radiation. Think of standing next to a stone wall that's been baking in the sun all day. Even after the sun sets, you can feel the warmth radiating off that wall. That's radiant heat. It doesn't heat the air first. It heats your skin, your clothes, the furniture, the walls of the room. Everything becomes slightly warm. And the air temperature can actually be several degrees cooler than in a forced air heated room, yet you feel more comfortable because The physics behind this is described by the Stefan Boltzmann law, which states that the power radiated by a hot surface is proportional to the fourth power of its absolute temperature. Don't be intimidated by the formula. The practical takeaway is simple. Hot surfaces are extraordinarily good at transferring heat through radiation. The masonry heater's surface, even when it's only warm to the touch, not scalding, just pleasantly warm, is constantly pumping out infrared energy that your body absorbs directly. This is why people in homes with masonry heaters often say they feel comfortable even when the air temperature is lower than what their thermostat-controlled friends consider acceptable. Their bodies are not relying on hot air. They're absorbing radiant heat from warm surfaces all around them. And there's another critical advantage: combustion efficiency. Because you burn the fire hot and fast, the wood combusts completely. There's no creosote buildup, minimal particulate emissions, and you extract maximum energy from every log. Modern wood stoves that smolder slowly are actually less efficient and more polluting than a properly designed masonry heater burning at full intensity. The medieval design forced complete combustion, then captured that heat in the mass instead of letting it go up the chimney. Think about this from a fuel perspective. A modern forced air furnace runs dozens or even hundreds of times per day, cycling on and off, wasting energy every time it restarts. A masonry heater fires once or twice a day. The fuel consumption is dramatically lower, yet the thermal comfort is higher. In regions where wood was scarce and winters were brutal, this wasn't just clever engineering, it was survival technology. You couldn't afford to waste heat, so you stored it. Now let's return to the true genius of the medieval approach, the principle that modern engineering textbooks mention but modern builders ignore: thermal lag. This is the secret that made stone castles and peasant cottages warmer than your climate-controlled apartment. When you heat a mass of stone or brick, you're not just warming its surface, you're driving heat energy deep into the material's molecular structure. Stone has high specific heat capacity and high density. It takes time and energy to heat it up, but once heated, it takes equally long to cool down. This delay between input and output is called thermal lag, and in the context of heating buildings, it's pure gold. Here's the beautiful part. Thermal lag smooths out temperature fluctuations. In a modern home with forced air, your indoor temperature is a roller coaster. The furnace kicks on, temperature spikes, furnace shuts off, temperature drops. You're constantly chasing equilibrium, but never reaching it. But in a home heated by thermal mass, the temperature profile is a gentle wave. The mass heats up during the fire, then slowly, steadily releases that heat over many hours. There are no spikes, no drops, no sudden changes. Your body, which is exquisitely sensitive to temperature changes, feels stable. You're not constantly adjusting, pulling blankets on and off, cranking the thermostat up and down. You just exist in a stable thermal environment. The ancient Romans understood this at a civilization-wide scale. Their hypocaust system, underfloor heating in public baths and wealthy villas, worked on the exact same principle. A furnace, usually tended by slaves, would burn wood beneath a raised floor. The hot gases would circulate through channels under the floor and inside the walls, heating the masonry. The fire itself was outside the living space, so there was no smoke or soot indoors. What remained was clean, radiant heat emanating from the floor and walls. Bathers in Roman thermae enjoyed warm floors to walk on and warm walls to lean against, all heated by a single fire burning continuously in a hidden chamber. This wasn't primitive technology. This was sophisticated thermal engineering. Fast forward to Northern Europe in the Middle Ages. The Viking longhouses, the German farmsteads, the Russian izbas, all incorporated some form of thermal mass heating. In Scandinavia, they built massive stone hearths that dominated the center of the home. In Russia, the pech became the literal and symbolic heart of the household. It wasn't just a heater. It was a sleeping platform. People would sleep on top of the warm mass in winter, a cooking surface, a bread oven, and a source of comfort. The pech defined the Russian peasant home for centuries. These weren't isolated inventions. Across Northern Europe, from Ireland to Siberia, cultures independently discovered that storing heat in mass was superior to burning fuel constantly. And here's the profound irony. These primitive medieval builders were applying physics principles that modern engineers learn in thermodynamics class but rarely implement in residential construction. Modern buildings are designed for speed, cost, and standardization. Masonry heaters are heavy, custom-built, and require skilled craftsmen. They don't fit the industrial model of housing. So we abandoned them, not because they don't work, but because they're not profitable to mass produce. But there's a growing movement of people rediscovering these systems. In Finland, the tradition of masonry heaters never died. They're still built in new homes today. In North America, a small but dedicated community of masons builds modern versions based on traditional designs. They report the same things medieval peasants and Roman bathgoers experienced: unparalleled comfort, dramatically lower fuel consumption, and a kind of warmth that feels fundamentally different from forced air. It's not just about temperature, it's about the quality of heat. Think about what we've lost. We traded thermal comfort for convenience. We traded fuel efficiency for instant gratification. We traded healthy, allergen-free air for the ability to hit a button and feel warm air blow on us immediately. And most people don't even realize the trade was made. They just know they're cold, their heating bills are high, and they can't seem to get comfortable no matter what they set the thermostat to. The medieval castle, sitting on a windswept hill with walls 3 feet thick, was warmer because those thick walls were thermal mass. The stone absorbed heat from the sun during the day and from fires at night, then radiated it back slowly. The castle didn't fight the cold, it stored warmth and released it gradually. Modern homes, built with hollow walls, thin materials, and no thermal mass, are just boxes trying to trap hot air. And air, as we've learned, is terrible at storing heat. So, in light of all these physical facts and historical evidence, what can you do? You're probably not going to tear down your modern home and build a medieval castle. You're probably not going to install a multi-ton masonry heater in your apartment. But you can understand the principle and start applying it in small ways. If you're building or renovating, consider adding thermal mass. tile floors, brick or stone accent walls, even a heavy concrete slab foundation can help stabilize temperature. If you have a fireplace, don't just use it for ambiance. Let the masonry around it heat up and radiate warmth long after the fire dies. If you're in the market for supplemental heating, look into masonry heaters, or at least high-mass wood stoves designed for radiant heat, not forced air. But most importantly, stop trusting the HVAC industry's propaganda that their way is the only way. The thermostat is not the pinnacle of human comfort. It's a marketing tool that convinced you to buy more equipment. True warmth, the kind that penetrates your bones and makes you feel safe, doesn't come from a machine cycling on and off. It comes from being surrounded by warm surfaces that radiate heat gently and constantly. If what you heard in this video made you realize why your modern heating system leaves you cold and your energy bills high, show it with a like. Now it's time to be honest. When winter comes, do you actually feel comfortable in your home, or are you constantly adjusting the thermostat, layering clothes, and wondering why you're still cold? Write in the comments below. Let's compare notes on the HVAC scam we've all been sold. And that friend who's always complaining about their heating bills or how their house is always drafty despite a new furnace? Send them this video. Maybe this will be the moment they realize that the problem isn't their house. It's the entire philosophy of modern heating. We will continue exposing how ancient technology outperformed modern shortcuts in this series. In the next video, we're examining medieval wood preservation. How did Viking ships survive 1,000 years while your deck rots in 10? The answer isn't poison, it's pine tar. You don't want to miss those chemical secrets. Until then, stay warm, stay skeptical, and most importantly, stay real.